nadhani zinamkumbusha alipokuwa kijana, na matumaini sawa na nchi changa uhuru.
You know, the music industry has become so enormous in Kenya. It's taken off and we got so much talent. And I've been looking for somebody to come and tell us all about it and excite us about the business. And also from a selfish point of view, you know, I'm interested in learning about the dynamics of how it works with a husband and wife in the music business, and whether it's the same for a husband and wife in my business. And I thought I'd get some clues out of you guys. So I'd just like to also thank today, because we've been supported by the Intercontinental, who've given us this lovely space, the Mara Ballroom. I'd like to thank Bob Collimore's team and Marianne, I think she's somewhere in here as well, for giving us the live stream. So anybody today can plug into the live stream anywhere in the world, and I've got people tweeting me up from all kinds of places, from Malindi to Canada, to all kinds of places. So it's really exciting to have that as well. And I'd like to thank my other half for making this happen. You know, this train would go off the tracks if somebody wasn't driving it in the straight line, and I thank her for that. And once again, really, I'm so pleased to have you guys here today. Really charismatic couple, going great places. I was at that party and I met this lady who was a friend of Eric's, and I said, what do you do? And she said, I'm the producer of Charlie and Lola. And I said, wow, you know, I've watched that many evenings because I have a little daughter, and now she doesn't want to watch it, she wants to watch something else. But the power of Eric and Sheba's pull is really extensive. And they're very 21st century, and I'm really excited today. Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you, Sheba, for making this happen today. Thank you. Sorry. Ooh.
So, morning everyone.
Morning everyone.
Yeah, so our presentation today is going to be very casual, very informal, very anecdotal. But that's not how the music industry is. Don't take it like that. But then, so I thought maybe what we'd do is just maybe start with introducing ourselves and kind of letting you know a bit about ourselves. And we're going to be sort of
Taking it together.
Taking it together, sort of as the tag team that we are. So my name is Eric Wainaina. Well, not everyone knows. I always introduce myself to people because you can't take stuff like that for granted. You know, people say you don't need to say your name. I'm like, no, not everyone necessarily knows. But I was born in 1973. I'm 38 years old, and born to a family of I've got an older brother who's at the back of the room there. His name is Simon Wainaina. We've got 2 parents, which is kind of standard. And born and raised in Nairobi. I went to school at St. Mary's School for my primary and secondary education, and if there had been a St. Mary's University, I probably would have gone. What always shocks me about sort of looking back at my Saints days is that I remember sort of arriving there in 1980, showing up for my first day of class, and looking up at the Form 6 corridor and wondering whether I'm ever going to make it there. I was working it out. It was going to be like 12 or 13 years. Now, my Form 6 years are 20 years behind me, you know? It's really crazy how fast life moves. So I'll go into my university education a bit later, but Sheba, introduce.
Okay, my name is Sheba Hirst, and I also grew up in Nairobi. My parents were both in the creative sector as well. My mom worked in publishing for the Oxford University Press, and my dad was an illustrator who was of some, I would say, some note as well. He had a magazine, a satirical magazine that he ran with my mother called Joe Magazine in the 70s and in the 60s and 70s, and he was also the illustrator of a series called the Picha Hadithi series, and was part of a vibrant community of artists. Both of them were in the 60s and 70s, and so I grew up very much immersed in the creative sector. But ironically, I also grew up exposed to the informalities that come with growing up in that sector, and the quick knowledge that it's not necessarily a good money and business place. So one of the things I knew when I was growing up was that I was going to marry a banker. Somebody with a straight, clear line of income, you know, no frills and fancy, somebody with a good 9-to-5 job, you know, something that was the representation of stability and predictability. And that was my great plan for myself in life at 7 years old. It didn't exactly play out like that. I went to primary school at the Consular Primary School, and then I went to Mountain View Primary School, which is a little primary school out in Kasarani, which is where I was growing up, and it was a very local, in your neighborhood type primary school where most kids spoke Kiswahili. And then from there, my parents thought that it would be a good idea to send me to the very high cost and posh St. Andrew's Turi out in the Muller Highlands.
Oh, you're posh.
And it was the culture shock of my life. But also it was an interesting grounding. And then I rounded it off by doing the IB at St. Mary's School.
Which is kind of where we met. It's
It's a bit of a funny story.
yeah, it's a bit of a strange story. My version, and she always says that I have it wrong, is that, okay, in 1994, I left St. Mary's in 91, and then we formed Five Alive in the beginning of 92, and so I was kind of cruising along with that sort of career path. And then sort of halfway through Five Alive's life, which we'll go into a bit later, I decided to go to music college, and so finally I decided to get my school leaving certificate from St. Mary's. And so it was 94, I'd been away from school for about 3 years, and I walked into the Saints sort of main building area, and I was looking to go to the headmaster's office. Now, like I said before, I'd been in St. Mary's all my life, so I knew where everything was. But I saw this angel of woman coming towards me. And so I said to her, excuse me, could you show me the way to the principal's office?
At which point I rolled my eyes, thinking, who does he think he's talking to? I mean, Eric had been held up by St. Mary's as the kid who had made it already, and it was pounded into us on a regular basis, the success stories of the school. So if there's one thing that we knew is that Eric definitely knew exactly where the headmaster's office was at St. Mary's School, especially since we were standing almost directly outside of it. I don't know.
I didn't know. So that's pretty much how it began. Sheba insisted we'd actually met before.
I had been to a couple of concerts of Eric's. I was dating another musician at the time, which is and he was also in an a cappella group. And
we don't talk about him much, though.
And so he had taken me as a birthday treat to see a Five Alive concert. And had as part of that treat had taken me backstage to meet the Five Alive guys, and every single one of them remembers meeting me that day except Eric, which I don't know. Yeah, so.
Not true. Then, moving rapidly on. So I mean, with Five Alive began in '92, and it's interesting sort of how it began because both Victor, who was the other founder member, and myself were in pretty much polar opposites as far. I mean, he was in school in Nakuru, I was in school in Nairobi, and he was representing his school doing a bass solo at Kenya Music Festival. I was doing a tenor solo, and we sort of really liked what each other, sort of our performances, and said, you know what, let's get together and do something, and that's how Five Live informally began. And over the course of the next 5 years, over the course of the next 2 years, we played pretty much 6-7 gigs every single weekend, and the majority of those gigs, in fact, 98% of them were all free. And the reason I mention this is because that's pretty much how Five Alive got to be known, and I'm putting that out as because right now a lot of artists want to start charging from day one, and while ultimately we need to be sort of raking in the bucks, initially it was really important for us to be playing gigs at zero. We played, like I said, 6 or 7 shows every weekend. I mean, if you think about it, as we were playing a wedding or on a Saturday morning at about 10, and you know how churches sort of bring them all in. I mean, if you go to a place like All Saints, for instance, there's a wedding at 10, you know, You show up and there's another one at 12. If you come at 11:30, you know, you could be there for Kimani and Anyango's wedding, and suddenly you're sitting in the aisles and you're wondering, who are those guys up there? Because I've never seen them before, you know? And so we would end up playing 2 or 3 of those on a Saturday. That's a similar number of youth services on a Sunday. So we got to be known very quickly by a large number of people within a very short period of time.
Okay. Meanwhile, I finished college, high school at St. Mary's, and I was hoping, like many of the other kids that were finishing, that I'd be part of the giant airlift that was taking young people from that class to go to colleges in the UK. Predominantly, I say 98% of my class went to colleges in the UK, but when I graduated, unfortunately, my parents did not have the resources for us to jump on that aeroplane and join the other happy folks who had frolicked off there, which was a bit of a shocker. You kind of go through school expecting that if you do well, everything else will pan out, you know, fairly straightforwardly. And because I'd opted to go into the international schooling system, you have this mindset that you're on this outward path. But that didn't work out for me like that at all. And so I started looking around for other options more locally, and at the time I registered actually even to go to USIU, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't the courses that I necessarily wanted to get involved with. So I decided to get a job instead. And so I got a job working in Dar es Salaam. I was ostensibly doing it because I thought I might probably registered to go to the University of Dar es Salaam, where my mom had gone. I was still on a law school track at that point. And I was working as the personal assistant to a guy who was building a cooking oil refinery plant. Now, the experiences that you have in your life, you don't realize how much they're going to come into bear, but it was he was a psychotic boss in every way. I mean, he was the most fastidious, like he was really obsessive about how things are filed, how documents are typed, how letters are laid out, and he would make me do things over and over again. And because he was from China, and I was his assistant, and because I was his assistant because I spoke Kiswahili and English, and they needed somebody who was going to be really cheap, who spoke both languages, and who sort of like could talk a good game, and that was me. So, but by being his right hand, I was immediately immersed into the world of like the dynamics of big business and contracting. I was on construction sites. I was helping them clear equipment out of the port. I was handling, you know, all the payments for the company, and that was an incredible. It ended up being 2 years worth of work in really learning about how to set up systems for an office and for a business, and how to deal with difficult government officials without paying bribes. And it was an invaluable experience, and I spent a year in Dar es Salaam and then a year in Nairobi working for the same company. At which point, my mom, who was determined that one way or another I would go to college, and who was getting very concerned about how settled I seemed to be getting into the business sector, called up a friend of hers in the US and said, "Do something, do something. This kid is never going to go to college if we don't do something." And so her friend invited me to visit for 3 months, ostensibly, just to visit the US, you know, just have a break from this insane work world that you've gotten immersed in. And their evil plan was that I would then apply for colleges while I was there. And I found when I landed that there were all these college applications laid out for me. And it was actually a testament to her determination. And people have these moms, right, who have got this plan for you and who are doing these machinations in the background for you. And that was hers, was getting me out of that path and sort of like redirecting me back onto the school path. So I went to the US in 1998 and applied for colleges, and I got into Wellesley College, which is a women's college in Massachusetts, and a great women's college, actually, if I can say that. Has had the likes of Hillary Rodham Clinton and Madeleine Albright, and as their alum, and Madam Chiang Kai-shek, although we don't talk about that so much, but you know.
And Miss Sheba Hirst.
And thank you. Yeah.
Meanwhile, I went to the Berklee College of Music, and it was a big thing for me. If anyone here has been to the US, you know the problems about just getting a visa, sort of how that whole thing starts. And I'm even thinking about writing a blog about what not to do when you go for your visa, right? I think chief of the things is don't wear white shoes, white leather shoes. And then the guy who shows up there with the American and Kenya flag on his lapel,
That guy's not getting up.
he's not going anywhere.
Yeah. They're on to you, man.
They're on to
You're trying too hard. Yeah.
So yeah, show up at, no, but I mean, the whole sort of getting a visa thing, it's like getting an Academy Award, you know?
Yeah.
Because first of all, they're talking to you through the screen, and there's all your secrets are coming out to all the people in the room, you know, and as Kenyans, you know, we're quite reticent about what we have, whatever, and very reserved.
How much do you earn, madam, in a year?
Well, I just don't know. Let me just, can I tell you? Let's talk about it on the side. Asking me in front of everybody, I can't tell you. And then your brother is suddenly looking at you. How much do you earn in a year? Yes, tell us. Oh.
So we showed up in the US. For me, this was 1997. So I'm going to a music college. I'm 24, and invariably, I'm always the oldest guy in the class.
I was the oldest person in my class as well. Yeah.
And I think one of the things that frustrated me was I arrived there in the summer of 97, and Berkeley has this program where they get a lot of kids who are considering a music education to visit the school for a 5-week course. And so you're getting all these 13, 14-year-olds who are sort of just checking it out, sort of thing. And they invariably don't do their homework, you know? And I mean, we were raised in a culture where if you didn't do your homework, it was...
Your finger got chopped off.
You know, exactly. And so at one point, I had to actually stop myself from turning around to this kid and saying, why aren't you doing your homework? Huh? You know, people are paying for you to be here. But I mean, that didn't happen. But I took my college education quite seriously. I think I missed maybe 2 classes in the 6 years that I was there, you know. Yeah, and it was the staff. But then we met again in the US. Berkeley had this system where you'd have mailboxes. One day I found a handwritten note in my mailbox which had been hand delivered, and it was from Sheba. And a friend of mine had said maybe 3 months ago, hey, by the way, there's some babe called Sheba trying to get in touch with you. And I said, you know what, she's this hot mama, and she's all the way in TZ, it's not gonna happen. What he didn't tell me was that she had said she's actually in New Hampshire, this is the neighboring state. So we ended up meeting up again, which was sort of phase 2 of this story.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, well, I guess I was in Boston, and immediately you try to find the Kenyans that you know, and I had heard that Eric had gone to school in Boston as well. And so I was walking down the street in Boston, checking out the town, and saw Berkeley College of Music. And so I walked in, like the new Kenyan I was, and asked the first person that I knew, hi, do you know Eric Wainaina? To which the surprising answer, and even the guy was shocked, he was like, actually, yes. He's like, okay. So Eric had made it his business to say hello to a new person every year and introduce himself, which served us very well that day.
It's what's his name again?
Carnegie.
Dale Carnegie. It's a Dale Carnegie principle that every single day you make friends with one new person.
Well, that worked out for you well.
It worked out for me. I mean, I was the strangest guy on campus, because I would actually just show up to people. They'd never seen me before, and I'd be there like, hi, my name is Eric, I'm from Kenya, you know? And then we'd have a conversation. Sometimes I'd say, hi, I'm from Kenya, and I don't run, you know? I mean, with Boston, that's the thing. With Kenyans, we've won every marathon in Boston since 1970, whatever, you know? Yeah. Which actually fed in later to this gig schedule that we started to do. We decided every year on Patriots Day, which is I think the 3rd Monday in Boston, which is when the Boston Marathon is held, that we would have a gig for the Kenyan diaspora. The Kenyan diaspora was how we were beginning to really play regular gigs. We would play regularly at a club called Riles, which was in the jazz district in Boston. But then this gig on Marathon Monday was at a club called the Rack. Now the Rack was one of Boston's most sort of prestigious sort of disco clubs, whatever. And we would show up, and who were we? You know, we were just these Kenyans, and we'd meet up with the manager and say, look, we want to play a gig on marathon Monday. She said, like, on Monday, who's going to show up? We say, well, actually, we're from Kenya, and we are scheduled to win the marathon, and so people are going to come.
We're going to need to have an after party. Yeah. In fact, one year a Japanese guy came first in the Boston Marathon. She called up and she was like, so is the gig cancelled? The Kenyans did win. We got 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 17th place. I think we can still have an after party gig. But that was the point at which I started to get involved a little bit in Eric's career while I was doing my schooling. I was on a political science, then to law school track at that point. I have all these tracks that just... And then but I was really struck by how energized Eric was about the fact that he was in school, but he was at the same time sort of the living embodiment of just doing what it was that he was ultimately going to do in life. So we were already playing gigs, you had a band, you were actually paying your fees through doing a lot of concerts and through selling CDs. You were trying to produce your CD as well. And so I got involved with Eric. I think I made your first poster in
Yes.
I made your first poster.
We wanted to show it, but...
We'll put it on Facebook.
We will.
It was an unmitigated disaster, I'll say so myself at this point, but it was a good effort.
It was. We actually went to Sheba's college, and we had, was it like a throwaway Kodak? Those
Yeah, it was those cameras that you throw away from the supermarket, and we took some pictures with that because we didn't own a camera yet.
Which no one understands nowadays because you can do it all on your phone. But you remember those paper cameras? Yeah. So we got one of those. I went and posed on the different stages on this one stage at Wellesley. And we got this one picture that we really liked. And because I was crazy about the Kenyan flag, Sheba actually went with Photoshop and drew a Kenyan flag on this white T-shirt that I had. But it got us people to come for the gig.
People came for the gig,
that's
despite
kind of
the
what
poster.
Counts. But that was sort of the beginning of the business, as it were, sort of bringing the money in. But also, there was ways in which I was paying for my education, like Sheba mentioned, through that. But then also just... it's interesting, it is a business thing as well. My education at Berkeley, at first I had a scholarship for about $3,500, which was at the time 35% of just tuition. And every day, every beginning of term, I would knock at the bursar's door and say, look, when I came to Berkeley, the dollar was 68 bob. Today, it's 84, as in back then. It's just impossible for me to keep on doing this. I just can't go on. I need more money. I need a full scholarship. And he would keep on saying, Eric, if we didn't give you a full scholarship when you first came, we're not going to give it to you now. But we pretty much were on first name basis, and I was involved in just about every single activity that I could be involved in school. Once again, it's been a policy of mine. And it's helping our business as well, just to be of the most giving spirit at whatever time, just get involved. In line with the thing of meeting someone new every day, I put my sort of a little advert up on the music production engineering notice board that I was a songwriter, I was also a singer, and I was prepared to provide material for people to record. At Berkeley, production engineering students are required to record material over the course of their sort of education career, but they're always looking for people to write the material. And so it generally takes people a year or two to finally make it into the studios, but because of that thing of always pushing and putting my name out there, within sort of the first 2 months, I was writing for music production students, and that ended up being that the college began to take notice of me. And as a college, and most colleges in America have this, they have a certain amount of money that they have to give away for scholarships. It's part of the requirement. But there's a finite number of students they can give it to. And so the more involved I was, and the more sort of I was rising, sort of that my name was sort of coming up in conversations, the more likely it was that I would get my scholarship sort of increased. And so within sort of a couple of semesters, I was getting more and more. But then, Incha Kitu Kidogo, now we're sort of skipping ahead, got released in Kenya.
Sorry. Didn't mean to stop you.
Incha Kitu Kidogo got released in Kenya, and by a series of, at the time, unfortunate events, but then ended up becoming quite fortunate. The BBC, New York Times, all those took notice of it, and then out of the blue, I had an article in the Boston Globe and an article in the New York Times, and
wow.
yeah, and so
Perhaps you should tell that story a little bit about how that happened.
Okay.
Sorry, this happens a lot in our working relationship. It's
It
where
does,
I pause
it
and just
Okay, so I'd been asked to go play at the Kenya Music Festival as a past contestant, just for the Kenya Music Festival to show the kids, you know, if you take music seriously, you can make a career out of it. So here we were, Incha Kitu Kidogo had been playing on radio for a while, and the then Vice President George Saitoti was in the audience, and so we go onto stage, and I've been asked, okay, so what songs are you going to play? I say, I'll play Sawa Sawa, and I'll play Incha Kitu Kidogo. So we get done with Sawa Sawa, then Inchi starts to play, because we're using a backing track, and suddenly a guy on the side of the stage starts to do this thing, you know? And I'm there like, you know, what happened, what's going on? And it irritates me the way whenever you're involved with sort of government stuff, they're prepared to stop whoever's on stage because some dignitary has arrived late. I mean, have you ever been to occasions like those? It's happened to me before. We're sort of standing there doing our thing, and then we have to stop because so-and-so has arrived late. Mgeni rasmi amefika, okay, asante, makofi ya kilo, ameketi, okay, go on from where you were. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and we go, you know? So I was really irritated by that. So I was there like, no, we're not going to stop. But it sort of began to dawn on me that what was wrong was the content of the material we were playing. And then I admit I started to sort of get a bit intimidated by this presence of guys being there like, you know, cut it. My brother was in the control room, and he tells me that sort of hoods came in and they're like, where's the music coming from? Muziki inatoka wapi, you know? But the Kenya Music Festival guys who were there sort of in cahoots with us, so they're like, you know what? We're not even going to tell him. They were there like, cassette play, huko mbali, check huko karibu na mlango. So the music went on playing, and the audience at this point, because the song had been getting airplay, they knew the song and started to sing along with the chorus, right? And my dancers, the choreographer Brian was there like, he was telling his guys, dance with psych, dance with psych. And so we ended up playing the whole song, walking off the stage sort of as the instrumental faded, and then a journalist from BBC came up and she started to interview me. And I don't know if any of you know Jamhuri Mwa Vyombo. She speaks the highest level of Kiswahili, and here I was just sort of coming from Ubabini, coming from Boston. At that time, I didn't know even how to say a bribe in Swahili. Suddenly, he was writing a song about corruption. It never occurred to me that I'd need to know what
that word is.
So anyway, so that happened, but then, so I show up back in Boston, and I go up to the scholarship office, and I'm there like, I need a scholarship. And even before I finish the sentence, the guys are like, Eric, it's wonderful you're here. We're so happy to see you. All that stuff is said about it. We didn't get a full scholarship, and then forget about that. You know, it's bygones, you know. And so from 35% scholarship and sort of increasing that up with every semester, by my 5th semester, free ride.
Yeah. Woohoo.
It was cool.
Yeah.
I cannot complain.
Yep.
I had a scholarship from the beginning, so that wasn't a problem for me. Towards the end of in the course of my degree, it became clear to me that I was much, much more interested in what was going on in the cultural sector. I started to take more film classes. I was getting involved in Eric's music career. I was seeing the changes in dynamics that I wanted to be very important in Kenya as well. And I was also becoming much more focused on what was going on around the continent. I became conscious when I was in school in the US that I knew very little about the rest of Africa. And actually, the first film, for example, that I had watched from another African country, I had watched it in Boston. And towards the end of my degree, I sort of felt I let the political science slide a bit and started to get more involved in, as I said, in cultural subjects. And I applied for a fellowship at the end of that, which I was awarded to travel for a year after finishing college to different African countries, looking at their film sectors, trying to examine what made one country able to produce cinema at such a high rate? Nigeria on one model, Mali, Senegal, and Burkina Faso on another model, South Africa on another, and Kenya with all its richness, all its diversity, with all its capacities, with you know, even often better infrastructures. Why were we just not producing film? Now, I didn't end up going into working in the film sector that much, but that year of travel ended up being fundamental to my understanding, basically, of of the systems that other economies that are similar to ours use to make their cultural sectors viable, and how those experiences can be transposed to the Kenyan experience. And Eric came with me for part of the trip. We are actually, I mean, the story of the West Africa trip is an epic tale in itself, so we're not going to get into it here. We'll just do a whole separate MindSpeak on traveling in West Africa, Alikan. I mean, like, that thing was incredible. But we traveled on many different modes. We were basically taking a road trip from Burkina Faso all the way to Dakar. And we went, I mean, we flew to Cote d'Ivoire, and then, you know, right in the middle of the first Gbagbo war moment, so we arrived there then. And then, you know, went on to Mali, then we went by bus, train, taxi, broken down taxi, more train, walking, all the way across West Africa till we finally got to Dakar. Which was an incredible experience, yeah.
Our travel agent at the time, I just have to tell you this one story, says to us when we are here in the comfort of Moy Avenue, says to us, you're going to Burkina Faso, get your ticket from
Burkina Faso.
no, what's the capital of Abidjan?
Yeah.
From Abidjan to Ouagadougou, don't buy to Nairobi, because there's so much more travel between Abidjan and Ouaga. Buy your ticket in Abidjan. And so we put the money back into our pockets here in Nairobi, in the comfort of Kenya, to go and buy our onward ticket in a war-torn West African country.
Where we don't speak the language well.
Things not to do. I think, other than the fight that broke out in the plane on the way, sort of, as soon as you pass the zero meridian.
Because it's a different continent on that side, it really is, yeah.
It just, and we're being broadcast live in West Africa.
Oh, sorry.
Hello, West Africa. Good to see you, Olga. Keep it right there, you know. So, we land in Abidjan, and the woman, when we get to the front of the line, she's there like, où est le transit visa?
You're like, well, we're not stopping, we're just passing through. I'm guessing she's saying, where's the transit visa? Yeah. We're not stopping, we're just buying our ticket, and then, you don't have a ticket.
Just to go stand at the derrière of the line over there, s'il vous plaît. So we went into the back of the line. Half an hour later, we get to the front. She's there like, no cafe, no visa.
Yeah, so it's called coffee. What we call tea, they call coffee. That was the first lesson that we learned.
Because they are French, huh? Not tea, it's cafe, huh? Ouais. So.
But that trip to West Africa, which we hope to take people on with us again as a sort of revisit,
it gave us some important lessons that ended up being really useful. For example, we went to watch Yusundur playing at the Chosan Club. And the Chosan Club is, it's a nightclub that he owns, and he was playing there at the time every week. Now in Kenya at the time, there was this big principle that you don't play a lot, you don't overexpose yourself. That would be?
Overexposure?
Yeah, that would be overexposure, yes, exactly. And that you need to save yourself. Like if you're going to be a big celebrity hit, whatever, you're going to need to save yourself and dole yourself out in little portions so that it kind of amps up your specialness. And it seemed to make logical sense until we got to West Africa, and here's Yusundur, he owns his club, he plays every week, he's the biggest artist in Africa at the time, and we're like, oh, this is total bullshit. Beep. Yeah, sorry. And so from that came, when Eric came back, very soon after that, he started to play the regular gigs every 2 weeks at Club Sound, which some of you might remember.
I mean, it was interesting sort of seeing how Youssou operates in Senegal. I mean, at the time they were saying he was playing 3 nights a week whenever he was in town, you know? I mean, we get there all sort of ready and green and everything at about 10 p.m. on a Sunday, and he didn't start playing until 2 in the morning, you know? His band shows up at 2, they start to sort of strum along. He comes on stage at about 2:30, plays for a.m., plays for about 2 hours, and just when you're thinking you're about to go on stage and maybe get an autograph, he walks off stage and leaves the band playing, and you guys are all there having a wonderful time, and he's home by the time you even reach the door of the club, you know? But he met with us, and at that time we were talking about doing a remix of Inchi with him, as sort of an Africa-wide ode against corruption, because we had been exposed to amazing levels of corruption in West Africa. Like Sheba says, in Kenya, you'll be asked to pay a bribe because you've done something wrong, you know? You've been stopped by a cop, your license is expired or whatever, you know? In West Africa, you get asked to pay a bribe to get beyond this point, you know?
Just to proceed in life.
You know, it's like in Monopoly, where you go around and you pass go, and you collect 200, at go, you give 200, you know? So, shortly after meeting with Yusu, also had met Oliver, McKinsey, and these African greats who were emphasizing to us the importance of playing in front of your home audience as often as you can. For Yusu and Oliver, the point was, you play at home, this is your main source of inspiration. Just that on its own, you know, that the stories that you tell as an artist come from a place where you're feeding off from your own people. A guy that I know who was a copywriter at the time for an ad agency and is now sort of a GM, was said to me, Eric, if you want to be a good writer, what you want to do is talk less and listen more. Because stories, your lyrics and everything will come from people who you interact with, conversations in matatus, newspapers that you read, etc.
We started our company in 2004, and the circumstances under which we started working together as Rainmaker are quite simple. We had moved back to Kenya. Eric was at the time being managed by his brother Simon, who's at the back over there very competently. But he had become conscious of the fact that he needed to build a broader structure around himself to handle. What was becoming clear was that there were no like institutional structures, and there still are very limited institutional structures at the time in terms of distribution and marketing and even the production company that helped you put your record together. Those structures didn't exist formally. So it became clear to us that we were going to have to start a company that would surround Eric with the institutional framework that he needed to be able to turn his creative output into substantial business output. And fortunately, I was available to work with him on that company. That was because I had applied to several jobs. I probably sent out 20 applications when I came back from college, but nobody was hiring, and they weren't hiring me specifically. I was trying to work for the government at the time, trying to get involved in working for the Ministry of Culture, but they weren't interested in having me one little bit. So without...
I just want to say the Minister of Culture is Honorable Ntimama. Need I say more?
Oh, come on now. And he wasn't the Minister of Culture back then. Yeah. Yeah, so but this was good. There was a good opportunity, and we had no resources basically when we started the company. We just basically registered a business name, which Eric's dad, who was a company secretary, helped us to do. Our first office was a combination of a little back room at my parents' house where we were living at the time, and our first, the other half of that office was a little white Suzuki. That was my mom's car that she let us run around in, and that people who knew us, they actually called it the office. You guys have come with the office today? And we're like, yes. All the files were in the back seat of that car, and we'd arrive to meetings and, go through. It was actually very efficient in some ways. It was the first, it was like early generation laptop. You just travel with physically your files in the car. It's like, same thing, flash disk, Nini. We were there, we were ahead. Just a bigger version. And so, that was basically how we started the company Rainmaker and started trading on that. And we also at the time got involved with a then very, very, very young producer called Tim Rimbui. He's at Rimbui if you follow him on Twitter. He was a very young boy at the time, and he was very short, which still is. And he was working at Samawati Studios at the time, and we had gone in to do a production with him. We had gotten commissioned to do a song. Eric had been commissioned by Standard Chartered to write their marathon. And we met him and had a great working experience with him. And so we asked him if he would be interested in breaking away and starting a company with us. And we were going to set up a studio. And he said, yeah, okay, let's go. And so we did.
So the commission projects became a serious sort of source of revenue for us as well. With the commission projects, what tends to happen is that you'll get called by an NGO or a UN type body, and they'll say to you, or a corporate, in this case, like Standard Chartered, and they'll say to you, look, for example, in the case of the NGOs, they'll say, we've got all this research, right? Sort of 5 years worth, here's all these manuals. go and read these 4,000 pages and distill them into a 3-minute song that people like.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And
It's usually files about the size of this podium.
yeah. And so, and it's usually about interesting topics like child labor and what else have we done?
Well, heavy stuff.
You know, interesting, you know,
Let's make a jumpy, upbeat tune
about climate change. How about that? Yeah.
Which are very important issues, I might hasten to add, by
Yes.
the way. We're not knocking them.
No, we're not.
saying that writing a jumpy little song about them is not always the most obvious thing.
No.
Yeah.
But then, sort of the commission projects became a sort of a serious source of revenue for us. And the challenge was always, as we've pointed out, converting that sort of literature into a song that people would like. We've done about maybe 5 or 6 of them, but I think there's only one of which I would proudly stand up and sing today. Invariably, what tended to happen with the commission projects is that it would also be a project that would be written by committee. And so, for example, with the one that happened last year, we were asked to write a song about the Millennium Development Goals through the UN office in South Africa, and we were all trying to take advantage of the fact that the World Cup was happening. And so they had all these names on it. There was going to be, initially Yusu was supposed to be on it, etc., Angelique Kidjo. But then here you are, I mean, Rachel commented about how, she said, that song of yours, it's interesting, but it's got many words, you know? Because, I mean, if you think about it, the Millennium Development Goals, and you have to write a song that people are going to like, you know? Where do you start? But then, like I said, people pay you for that kind of thing, and so if you, I take it quite seriously. I take lyric writing very seriously, and so I mean, I think I did a decent job.
Yeah, I think so too.
You know, so we've got this song out there with Angelique and everyone, and everyone's telling me, "Oh man, you finally reached. You're singing with Angelique and those guys. we hate the song, but you're there."
I think one of the things that it's important here to talk to people like in the corporate sector and in all these sectors about like what our philosophy is about when you want a song that that's actually going to work for some kind of messaging that you're doing. I mean, interesting, the way that songwriters work is by social commissioning, right? Which means that basically they're absorbing information all day long. You know, they're talking to people, the process that Eric was inviting. And this, over the process of sometimes months and maybe even years before that song actually comes into, is the combination of a long process of thought. So when you're asking somebody to do the same thing, but do it in 2 weeks and let's have the first draft by Friday, you know, you're kind of like cutting yourself short in terms of what's actually achievable. And so what we've been encouraging people to think about doing is work with an existing song, you know, something that already, license a song that actually exists already. And this can be like hugely successful. You've seen it work for people like Kenyan with a waving flag. Who didn't love the waving flag, man? I love the waving flag. You know, just a couple of adjustments that you know, that are lyrical adjustments and that kind of thing that mean that something that already has had that big thought process, you know, living in it, moving it forward. Now, that's not a sensible thing for me to say from a business point of view, because I should just be putting out ads here for saying like we can do a song in a month for you and it'll be a slam hit. But I think a big principle of ours is also just like making sure that you're, well, just doing things of integrity, like you can live with it, making sure that the things that you're doing in a creative business, you've got to be able to live with the stuff that you're putting out. Otherwise, I mean, it will plague you for the rest of your life and come up in your nightmares and your dreams, yeah.
You just have to love your hit song.
Yeah.
We sort of skipped over the whole thing with the release of Sawa Sawa, but with Incha Kitu Kidogo, I mean, it's a song that I have to play at every single gig that we do. And if you don't like your hit song, or if you, as a creative, if you don't like the thing that people know you for, you just have to love it, you know? And so it's that thing about sort of having that integrity to not just do work to pay the bills, but do work because it's coming from a place inside you of genuineness, because you're stuck with it for the rest of your life. In 2006, I won this award called the International Young Music Entrepreneur of the Year, and my fascination at that point had been how well River Road was doing, sort of distributing music. Whenever we talk about the the challenges that we have had with distributing music, River Road always puts up its hand and says, "Sisi hatuna shida, si tuko poa," you know? Because River Road will tell you that an average artist will move 30,000 units. But River Road has an interesting sort of business model. You show up at 9 a.m., right, with your ideas for a record, and by noon, you've got a record, you know? But invariably, and I say this with all due respect, that a lot of that material ends up sounding very similar, because you've got your stock musicians who are sitting in the studio ready to go, you know? So you've got drums, bass, keys, guitar, you come as your singer, you sing your songs, they play for you, then the next person comes, and it's exactly the same 4 people, and they just keep on churning stuff out. So there's a limit to how sort of varied that content will be. But I was still fascinated by what they were able to achieve. And at that time, there was Esther Wahome had just put out Kuna Dawa, Jemama Thiongo had put out Mwenye Baraka. And so there's a lot of talk of 1 million copies being sold, you know. So I began to really get fascinated with it. In sort of, there's always been a demarcation in the music industry, people talking about uptown and downtown, and sort of where uptown is everything north of Moy Avenue. But I came to learn that River Road was not so much just a street, but also a mentality, you know? It's, like I said, I mean, the most average artist would be putting out 30,000. We were having a challenge doing that. And so what was it that River Road had? And so I began to talk to a couple of people on River Road, had several meetings with people like Kamaru and Kasanga, trying to find out. And it all boiled down to an issue of pricing. And so I took that knowledge with me to IME, the entrepreneurship thing. And one of the things that came out in the UK was, okay, while pricing is fine, one of the things that they were really sort of emphasizing was the need to diversify our musical interests. We got to meet people from major record labels like Universal, and we got to meet people from mid-range record labels, and we got to meet guys who were pretty much running their companies out of their garages. And so we came back in 2006 with a desire or with a decision to change our business model, because up until that point it had been about the live shows. What else could we do? While we'd been doing the commission projects, while we also dabbled in musical theater, it was about now, can we actually make those things a part of what we do, seriously pursue them? Now, there's been pros and cons about those decisions, because, for instance, whenever as the creator of the company, whenever I take another project on, like More Fire the musical, it means that like the record that we're putting out today, as a matter of fact, that record doesn't get produced. Whenever I'm working on a show like Tinga Tinga, it means that More Fire is not advancing. And so for us, it's become quite a bit of a juggling thing, while we see the benefits of diversifying, because like with all businesses, there's high times and low times. Anyone in the music industry will tell you, and in fact, I'm just going to put this out, make it a public secret. If you want to hire musicians, you hire them in January. Because there's no work, there's nothing to do. My drummer was telling me that at Mavuno right now, they're calling musicians up and saying, please come and play on Sunday, you know, because guys are all sort of tied up. But in January, everyone's like, I'll play worship, I'll do anything, you know? And so as a business, we know that live gigs will dry up in January. So what do we have that will keep us going at that time?
Okay. And so in line with I'll talk a little bit about my track, which went off a little bit. I went to work for the Sarakasi Trust from 2006 from 2004 to 2007. And the Sarakasi Trust was a not-for-profit organization that was interested in developing creative talent in acrobatics, dance, and music. And it was another really good season for inputting. From my point of view, we were at the time starting to put together a festival called the Sawa Sawa Festival, which I helped to conceptualize.
And we pulled off stunts like doing the 100 hours of drumming, and the festival itself, I'll talk about that a little bit more because it's what's related to what we're doing now. It was a free festival, and that we had felt that that was important at the time because there just weren't that many live events that the majority of the most people in the country could go to, and it was a way for us to put high-quality Kenyan musicians up on stage with high-quality international acts like Hugh Masekela and so on, and then offer them to the public for free to start to educate and draw the public into an appreciation of the local talent that we have in the context of like established international talent as well. And we would have huge numbers at the 2 days. We had a day that was primarily African music. Well, it was all African music, but it was we'd have greats like Hugh Masekela, Baba Mal, and Eric, and there was at the Arboretum, and then we'd have a huge day when we'd have a reggae concert out at the Kasarani Stadium. And there'd be like 40,000, 50,000 people showing up to that gig. And it was, again, a very hugely expansive experience people said that you couldn't do concerts like that, you couldn't have free concerts. But really with any of these things that you have an ambition to do in your sector, it's really about just starting your preparations early enough to allow you to start to explore what the possibilities and the options were. Yes, having 40,000 people showing up to a reggae gig sounds like you're signing up for a national possible disaster. But what having understood that, what can we do to prepare ourselves for the challenges that will come? Like how many policemen can you mobilize? Can you talk the policemen into not arresting all the potential ganja smokers that will be there on that day, and just concentrating on arresting the guys who will be distributing, so that you're kind of policing the manageable things, And these were all, and we recruited a lot of young people to work as what we call peer security, put them in t-shirts and disperse them into the crowd so that they would help to sort of diffuse situations before they come up, and could identify like young people who are looking a little shifty and have a word with them for like, hey bro, not today, huh? Not today. And so sort of constantly exploring different methods of doing stuff like that. But really what I learned from that was and from working in that organization, is that you've got to set your sights really high and give yourself enough time to just really explore what all the possible options are for knocking off the anticipatable problem areas. So that was, I came back to work with Rainmaker in 2007, and at that point, our business has had 3 major areas that it was working in. We were working at that point with, we had a studio that we owned with Tim called the Nkare Studio. We also were doing our live shows and live performances. We were doing now music for television with the Tinga Tinga series, which you can talk about a little bit. And we had also gotten heavily into musical theater. In fact, the first producer of the Luanda Ghetto Stories in the audience today, shout out to Rachel Gishinga at the back over there. She actually started with us as an intern. I mean, now she's like a big, ballsy, what is it, social, Kweni serious, runner, organizer, GM, sorry, I'm messing this introduction up terribly, but she basically runs like one of the most effective platforms for like social mobilization through the internet, if that's, and she's famous. She was in Time magazine, so she was an intern with us in the beginning, and through working with lots of excited and interested young people, and there are lots of like good human resource people who young companies can engage to work and grow with you. We were able to do a lot of different things, including putting out the records and developing this sort of, record company for all intents and purposes, a theater production company, and at the same time running a music studio. So yeah, I feel like we're running a little bit short of time, so we should probably jump ahead to talk about our current record. Yeah.
So, Love and Protest, which I can now announce is available in every Nakumat in the city. That's a big deal for us. It's a big deal.
Yes.
Because the challenge has always been about distribution, how to get product out. When we put out several records before, we were saying to ourselves, we want the record to be available where people buy their milk, you know? It's not about you hearing a song on radio and having to make a special trip somewhere, you know? It's about the record being in your way. So the record is available today for the super low price of 399 shillings. Who is right? For us, I mean, like Sheba always says, piracy is actually an endorsement of your career. People pirate your material because, weirdly, they love you. We are stealing from you because we love you.
You want it.
What they're saying is that we want your material, but we can't find it. Or we can't afford it, right? I mean, for the longest time, we'd always pegged the price of a CD on the price of a record in the US, being $15. The US, weirdly, for some reason, sets all the agenda for the whole world, and the cost of CDs is one of those things. So, does this need to stay on? It does, huh? But now, but the thing is this, you can't sell a CD in Kenya for 1,000 bob if some of your audience are paying 3,000 bob for a flat in Zima. It's not going to work, right? But the challenge as well, sometimes we're even asking ourselves, is $3.99 low enough, you know? When you can walk into a cyber cafe, you know, it's always so interesting. I walk into a cyber cafe, I know you guys all know this, there's a sort of a manila thing with 8 CDs, right? Side by side. First combination, your CD, your music. In other words, you've come with your blank and you want someone to copy music onto your CD. 20 bob. It goes through the combinations till it comes to the most expensive combination. It's our CD.
The shop CD.
Yeah? And our music. Yani, you've come the way you were born. Uko uchi. There's nothing you can offer us. The most expensive it's gonna be is 50 bob. So even at $3.99, they're like, wow, that's like 8 times the price. But then there's other sort of revolutionary things we can do with Pewa Hewa and being able to download individual songs and Skiza. That's all part of the plan. But we are sort of, the pricing is the first level of attack for our goals for this record.
So, I mean, Love and Protest has been an epic production. It's been in production for 4 years. It was actually ready to go in 2009, and we held it back because we were doing More Fire at the time, which was also a huge production we had undertaken and broke some boundaries with that as well. And but we held back the release of Love and Protest at that time. And then, you know, Eric went back into the studio with some of the material and worked on it, and we thought we were going to release it last year in 2010, in April, I think we were thinking of. And then, but all the dynamics were just not coming together, and we just didn't want, I mean, we had CDs in the market before. It wasn't that. It was that we needed to get this thing to work right. You know, when something is your livelihood, and it's like where you have to pay your ever-increasing children's school fees from, you kind of begin to it brings into sharp perspective the fact that these things, you can't be casual about them anymore. You can't depend on like whether or not the distribution network will survive, but also you also have to be very real about how to harness the resources that you have. And in the case of us, I mean, some of those resources are the contacts and the people that you've met. How do you turn those resources into structural things that can work in a way that enhances your business? Now, what we knew is that with the kinds of numbers we were talking about moving, without setting out to build an army of people to set up stalls all over the country, we were going to need to ride on somebody else's network, and we were going to need to make that work well. So, and we had tried actually working with big groups of salespeople before, and I mean, human resources is it's a field of its own. It has its own experts and speciality people, and you know, people with degrees and master's levels of how to handle armies of people. So it's not necessarily the immediate and easiest thing for a young, small company to take on. And it can get very expensive, and it can get very complicated because, you know, individual people have very different individual things that are bothering them on different days of the week. So unless you have the machinery to deal with that, having a giant sales team was not necessarily going to be the answer for us. So we decided to focus on, a big distribution network, and that was in place. And Nakumatt was kind of an obvious, one of the obvious choices for doing physical units. A lot of people are saying like, oh, physical units are a thing of the past, we're now moving. But I mean, they're actually not. I mean, even in the US and so on, it's 60% of the sales are still physical sales of physical units. So a lot of people still want to have that physical product. And they want to have the little booklet inside with all the lyrics and all of that. And so for us, it was how are we going to be able to deliver also a production that was a world-class production, like quality thing, that was also going to be able to be available to people within this network of the supermarket chain at a price where it would be, I'm not saying that 400 shillings is a casual amount for anybody to spend, but it's a lot more casual than 1,000. I mean, I've many times wanted to buy a CD and just been like, okay, CD or whatever the rest of half of the shopping list. So no, I'll leave the CD alone and get it another time. So we're trying to put it into a pricing range where it can be something that doesn't necessarily alter your sort of basket of purchases that radically, that you can, in the course of like your normal shopping, consider picking it up and adding it to the things that you're going to be spending. And so we spent some time talking with Nakumatt about what their experiences were. And I think they were also encouraged by the fact that Eric is an established 20 years in the music business name, and they haven't really had that much success with the sales of music within their stores. And so they were also very interested in seeing how our experiment with distributing through their network and aggressively marketing through their network was going to work. So they've been extremely supportive in terms of giving us access to their floor space. There's a wonderful standee, which is a freestanding figure, a life-size figure of Eric with a shelf attached to it that will be in 6 of the locations. And then last night, we went through and distributed the product to every single one. So there was like 17 little stops. It was an important thing for us, as well as people who manage the company and who run the company, for us to actually go through the motions of going through the physical understanding of how this thing works. So we did a lot of the stuffing of the CDs together with our team just to understand, and we found out a lot of things, like assembling all these pieces, a hugely mechanical process, including sticking on the little labels. You can stick on little labels till your thumbs are weary, and when you have to do like 5,000 of them at a go. So we're really exploring ways that a lot of this stuff needs to become a lot more mechanized if we're going to be talking about, selling 1 million units or more than 1 million units. All of these other systems have to come into place. It was also really important for us to get to look at our production process from the beginning to the end and look at where the gaps were. And a big problem with a lot of the CDs that were getting produced in Nairobi was that they're produced on these tower systems. There's very few places, if any, that I don't know of any in Nairobi that were doing genuine bulk reproduction of CDs. But I found a company in Tanzania that does, and that is doing optical laser replication, they call it. They actually make the CDs from crystals of powdered crystals, and you see the whole machine, and they kind of generate the actual CDs, and they can do the kind of bulk numbers that we're talking about. So we spent some time, I went down to Tanzania to meet these guys and to understand what their whole production process was about, because then we could understand those systems and internalize them into our planning, our budgeting, and our understanding of how our product goes from beginning right to the end. So we spent a lot of time seeing this CD through really baby steps, not subcontracting a lot of it to other people to do, but really sitting down step to step to make sure that all the systems would work well together. We spent a lot of time finding out how the CDs go into Nakumatt through the back door, who has to sign what. Because when you finally end up handing this process over to somebody else, you need to have a very firm understanding of what the normal steps are, so that when there's giant deviations from that norm and somebody's like, no, he told me I don't need that paper today, instead of, as in the past we did, we're okay, if he told you he didn't need it, he didn't need it, but really taking control of that part of the process.
Yeah, taking control of our business has become sort of our mantra for the last, what has it been, the last 6 months or so? We've had to, over the course of the last 2 years, there was a bit of an attrition of people who we worked with, just sort of deciding to go and do other things, which we were happy to let them go do. But then in the sort of now taking our systems back. For us, that has just been
Mind expanding.
mind blasting,
Yeah.
to quote a friend. But then, I mean, ultimately, what we want to do is just know where everything is. Because, I mean, as people, I think, who've run a company for a while, it also exposed, not being in control of those systems has also exposed us to a lot of hemorrhaging of money, you know. There's also been a lot of scope for corruption within the organization.
Yeah.
For, I mean, just, I tweeted about it, so it's not a secret, but the other day, the Nairobi Water Company came to turn our water off, found out that money that we'd been M-Pesing to pay our bills, I don't know if it's been getting there, you know, but I mean, we've got a bill of 150,000. Well, they're like 150,000 for water?
For washing the CDs. We've been washing
What?
Yeah.
You know? And so but it's, I mean, we sort of, so they cut the water. We told them, do what you want. And the guy's sort of standing expectantly, so, sino tunaweza kuongea. Wende ongea uko nje. Cut the water we're going to cut. We'll use rainwater. It's raining so much. So anyway, that's happened. But it's those sort of taking control of those little things. And like Sheba pointed out, how, coming to an understanding of the systems, because our goal is to sell 1 million units. I mean, the question is, well, why is that hard? You know, it is, and it will be. You know, I just sort of want to put out there, and I mean, we'd wanted to have a chat with Forbes before this, but they'd reported that we'd sold 2 million units. That hasn't happened. So this goal of selling 1 million units is actually a big deal for us. Why are we doing it? There's several reasons. I mean, chief is definitely for us, it's about our business being economically viable. And so we've set ourselves a goal of 24 months to make it happen. And I know we can. You know, we go around, we look at, I mean, if you just sort of, I think a problem that always the people in the entertainment sector always ask is, I mean, 1 million, how are you going to do it, you know? I mean, but the thing is, I think we always gauge our audiences, this is a mistake, by the people that we know. They're like, hang on, I don't know 1 million people. Well, it's not about the 1 million people that you don't know. Bob Collymore doesn't know 18 million subscribers, you know? And so it's about us just beginning to get an appreciation of what's possible. Yesterday we were stuck in a traffic jam for 2 hours as we drove from Embakasi to Mega, you know? And I'm thinking to myself, these are CD sales. All these cars here.
Got CD players in them.
All have CD players in them. And in those 2 hours, I could probably have stood outside and just been there like, hey, nani bona, tukuna CD hapa, inauzwa $3.99. And I would have been able to sell 1,000 CDs before the car had even moved, you know? So we know it's possible. Another reason we want to do it is because I think it's important for us to prove to the business community that that entertainment is a viable source of income, a viable place for them to invest. And that investment comes in many different ways. I mean, whether they're investing in like the CD plants that she was talking about, investing in education. I mean, as a company, when we've got a production going, I mean, I know this will sound small to a number of people who have many, many employees, but we have up to 100 employees at times. You know, that's a big deal, you know, for ideas that come out of our little heads, you know. That's wonderful. I also want it to be that parents can begin to see, you know, don't stop your kids from going into the arts. It is possible to make money, you know. I think, and not badly, and I'm not calling bad karma on ourselves, but I think that we're sort of a lot wealthier than a lot of the parents who are saying that their kids shouldn't go into music because it'll lead you into poverty. Okay. Was that a really long sentence?
It was a long sentence.
And I'm not bragging, I'm not saying we're wealthy, I'm just saying that we're doing fine, you know? And I think I really want to communicate that, because as a sector, you know, when we look at sort of what all of us have been through the Kenyan education system, you know, and we know the attrition rate of from primary to secondary school. Half the number of students are getting lost in that cutoff. Secondary school to university, another half are getting cut off. University to the job market, even if you get a degree, there's no guarantee that you're gonna get a job, you know? Yendembele. So the arts continue to provide sources of employment. And for us, for me, that 1,000,000 units embodies that as well. Another thing that we want to do, I've benefited a lot from the education that I had. I want us to be able to set up a scholarship grant because, like I said, I ended up getting a full scholarship, you know. Right now, Berklee College of Music has begun what they're calling the African Scholars Grant, because the current president of Berklee was in the Peace Corps here in Kenya in the 60s. And he said to himself, you know what, Kenya really played an important role in making me the person that I am. And so he got together with a couple of his rich friends and started a scholarship grant specifically for African students to go to Berklee. Now, as someone who benefited from Berklee's benevolence, I want to say, look, it's important for guys to go to a music college, or maybe for us to say, can we bring a couple of teachers from Berklee to Kenya for a certain number of months so a lot of people can benefit from that. That's another thing that we want to do with 1,000,000 units. The last thing is that we were in Basel in Switzerland about 2 months ago doing More Fire there. And I mean, it happens to me every time that I travel. I mean, there we were in the heart of Basel. It's rush hour, you know, and the trains are moving on time. There's no bustling, no nothing. It's just people sort of minding their own Swiss time, getting where they need to get to, and there's no, it's like it runs like clockwork, you know? And for me, it bothers me that, and at that time, sort of the ICC trials were really, it was the thing, it was hot, you know? And for me, it bothered me that as a nation, our sort of, the debate was about these 6 guys, you know? And it continues to be, the debate continues to be about tribalism. It continues to be about things that if we focused on the bigger picture, these debates would be relevant. So one of the things that I want to do is to take, quote unquote, the most militant youths, take them to places like Basel, take them to New York, you know, let's take them to Guangzhou, you know, so they can see, have their eyes open and see what the rest of the world is doing, so we can stop this little infighting, because it's so irrelevant to the larger discussion. That's one of the things we want to do.
We should do some music now. I reckon we should do some music now.
Yeah. You want to hear some songs?
Oh, yeah. We can hear some songs, and then maybe we can do the question and answer. I know we haven't covered a whole lot of stuff that you might have questions about. So yeah, we were thinking we'd do some songs, play the people some music, and then after that we can maybe do the Q&A after that, if that's good. Super. But yeah, great. Oh, super.
Great. That was very.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call onto stage right now friends of mine that I call the best band in Africa. That's their name. It's not a description. On drums, Mr. Marvin Maveke. On bass, Mr. Ricky Nanjero. On keyboards, Mr. Victor Kimeto. On percussion, Mr. George Nderito. And on guitar, he's our band leader, Mr. Isaac Mugunda. We're going to ask the wonderful and most talented Nanjera Sambuli from Nanjera fame to join us on stage. So maybe should we take a question while the band is setting up?
There's a problem with the music industry. You niche your products too high for the common person. I want to see my product everywhere. I'm in marketing, and there's one key thing in marketing. They call it place utility. We want to see our products everywhere, and we want to get it at the, like, if it is music, you would want to get it at a price where you can do an impulse purchase. I like it that you priced this at 400 bob, but I would like you to price it lower. Why am I saying that? Because looking at this, yes, it's a good product, but if I buy it in the streets, I'll have to carry it on my hands, right? If you package it with a smaller package, so that I buy the CD and put it in my pocket, it would be, it would appeal to me more as a product that can buy impulsively. So it is good that you've acknowledged that there's a problem with distribution, and right now I think you should work with people in the marketing industry, especially to deal with operations, because if Unilever can sell its products at 5 shillings in every corner, why can't any musician do that? Because I think it is all about the volumes.
Yeah. No, I think we're completely in agreement with you about that. And ultimately, we are looking always at cheaper ways of packaging the music so that, you know, like you said, eliminating the jewel case for the people who don't necessarily need or want that, cutting down probably on the cost of production of the booklet, so letting people go online if they want to look for the lyrics. But we thought we'd come out with the official version first, you know, and then in a couple of, we're hoping in the course of next year that when we are able to make a slightly different product available at an even cheaper rate. But we also are looking into the other distribution formats such as downloadable music, which is why it's on Pewa Hewa, so people can buy, you know, one song is 30 bob, you know, I think you have to buy 4, but you know, you can spend 120 bob and still get access to the music. And we're always looking at like other interesting platforms that we can use to bring the price down and make it as affordable as possible all the time. But thank you for that. Yeah. Cool.
And I also want to add that the more you have this in the streets, the more you have presence.
Thanks a lot, buddy.
Hello.
They're ready to go.
Yeah,
Okay.
mine is a question, direct question. Okay. What do you do as a rainmaker in terms of research and development? For instance, how do you combine, we have modern instruments, how do you combine traditional instruments in Kenya with modern to come up with, you know, a unique beat? What do you do in terms of, you know, research and development as rainmaker?
Well, I was a student at KU doing my master's for a while, where I studied how to play Orutu and Nyatiti. And I investigated that, and on the second record, 2020, I even played Nyatiti on a song or two. On this record, there isn't that much, you know, but it's something that I definitely want to grow. At different points in the band, I've had even 2 percussionists, you know. So it's something that I continue to investigate. But yeah, definitely listening to what other people are doing. If you listen to a guy like Yusundu, his records are just full of that, you know. But yes, it is continually a creative sort of process.
We should probably go to music first. I think the band are actually set and ready to go. So let's go for some music first, and then we'll come back to the questions. We'll come back to you. All right, thanks.
Siwezi done MindSpeak? Let's see your feet speak now.
you know what to do. When I say mpaka juu, you know what to do. Mpaka side, and mpaka side. Are you guys ready? Here we go. Mpaka chini. Mpaka juu. Mpaka side. Mpaka side. One more time. Mpaka chini. Mpaka juu, juu. Mpaka side, side, side. Here we go. Mpaka chini, mpaka chini, mpaka chini. Yeah, yeah. Mpaka juu, mpaka juu, mpaka juu. Mpaka side, mpaka side, mpaka So, the album is called Love and Protest, and it's available here today. And I've been notified by the management that they won't let you leave the hotel unless you show the CD. It's like your validation. So it's up there. Please make sure you get a copy. Please let all your friends and family know. And it's Christmas time. Get a copy for your mom, for your dad, for your neighbor, for your uncles. Let them feel the love. Sawa. Yeah! Hinga mani tamu sana. Itwisting inoma sana. Waze kweli jana. Tujichome uwanjani. Tukatike bila jasho. Twist, twist, twist. Tucheze sote. Hinga mani tamu sana. Itwisting inoma sana. Waze kweli jana. Tujichome uwanjani. Tukatike bila jasho. Twist, twist, twist. Tucheze sote. Ladies and gentlemen, the best band in Africa.
Yeah, then we'll come back to a little bit more music. But I do realize that I forgot to say one thing, one shout out that I wanted to give. And one of the things that we took a lot of time on was working on the design of this record. And we were blessed to have the king of good taste himself, Mr. Mbithi Masya, over there, who many of you might follow as at Mbithi. He did the record design for us. He did the photography. He saved us from numerous bad design ideas that we had for things that we wanted to do, like, no, that's shady, and it's ugly, don't do it. So, he just wouldn't do it, So you're just like, it pays to surround yourself with very, very solid creative people. Always look for people who are much better at you than what you can do, and the price and the payoff will be incredible. So thank you so much, Mbithi. Questions, yeah.
So my question is about distribution. First of all, I want to commend you for all the legwork you guys are doing. But my question is more on the digital distribution aspect of things. I know you guys are doing some stuff with Hewa. I think you did some Amazon guys. Are you also on iTunes, I believe? Seeing as we've got a lot more people becoming more technologically savvy and all, yeah? And I'm not sure if you've got an arrangement with all those ringback tone providers. How's that working for you? Or you haven't explored that yet? What's your thoughts about, ringback tones, new royalties and stuff? Just going with the whole diversification thing.
Second question. Because you're taking multiple questions, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. Great. Thank you for playing Twist. So who am I?
Yes.
I'm Dorothy. Eric, you're a celebrity, a singer, but I think you're a brand. Was this conscious on your part? Sheba, did you people say we're going to set out to be a brand? Or did you just happen to grow into a brand?
Should we take one more question?
Right, yeah. She's been standing for a while.
Hi, you're doing a great job. I want to ask a question. What has kept you going? Because I think you got at the storm. 20 years is not a short time. Thank you. My name is Helen.
Okay, let's take one more from you, and then we'll go. We'll take two more. Can we remember all these?
I'm writing them down.
We'll take two more, and then.
I have a business question, I have a sales question. The business question is, the most important thing is what you do, how you do your commercial management. How you work the 399 to a contribution margin, to a profit, to a volume, right? Just give us a rundown through how you worked on that. And then the second and most important question is, why didn't you get out of the car yesterday and sell? Because you are using fuel in traffic, you waited in traffic, and how many people do you know would turn down an Eric Wainaina CD sold by Eric himself? One more question. This is one of those things I call put in a pipe and smoke it for a while. You miss 100% of the sales you don't ask for.
My name is Mark Eric. Commendable job, great job. My issue is with, a comment that I'd like to get from you is, how do you work in terms of royalties with the Kenya Copyrights Board? How does this work? Because I think it's a serious concern in the industry, not only in music, but also we've realized this in the ICT industry with software pirating and all. How does it work for you, or how has it worked for you? And does it work for you?
Okay, just quickly about the ringback tones. We're really interested in actually getting into the ringback tones and the downloadable tones and all of that. We actually, I think we were reaching out. Oh, another important shout out that I need to make is to Nanjira, who has been helping us work out our way through social media, which we were both horrible at before she came to save us and teach us how the machines work. But also in terms of like downloadables and so on, we have been actually trying to make some reaches out to Sikiza, I believe, but I don't know, Kunavile, I think everybody's trying to work out how the thing works. I mean, we had a bit of a hard time even finding a platform that could adequately download the tunes, you know. I mean, it was difficult, and I think that there hasn't been a runaway success. I think even Bob said so himself. Like they're still also working out like how they're going to make that whole music and phones thing work better than it's working now. And Pewhewa was like one of the better platforms that we found. That there are still a lot of clicking steps to do, but that has a lot to do with the way that mobile money meets physical, downloadable tunes. So you're trying to cross between phone technology and downloading the music. And there's several steps that none of us can do anything about right now. But we're really interested in getting into like the callback tunes and so on. We're going to be in touch with Cellulant. But if anybody knows anybody from Skiza who wants to call us so that we can get that going, yeah, we can Skiza them also, as you said, yes. We'd love to, because we think a lot of the market is served through ringback tones. I mean, it shocks me, actually. To be honest, I'm not sure that I understand why ringback tones are so popular, because you're paying not to enjoy it yourself. It's such a selfless thing to do. Like, let me play you a song that I can't hear, you know? And pay for it every month. I mean, it's like the most, you know, it's like hiring out a hotel room for somebody else to use, you know? But people like it. I guess it's their way of identifying themselves and being able to put themselves out there a little bit. This is the music I like, you know? So anything that allows you to do that. So we're on it. Yeah, as far as like whether you're a brand, are you conscious? That was a question for you.
But about the ringbacks, both our house helpers have other people on their ringbacks other than myself. And I'm there like, well, let them pay you. But yeah, so we are working on that. Am I a brand? I've always avoided that. I've avoided that title. You know, why? Because I'm a person. I know people will say there's a demarcation, and we are beginning to admit it or embrace it. And I think what we need to do is maybe talk to a couple of brand people and just figure out sort of how best to do it. You know, I guess brands tend to be inanimate things in the past. Well, I mean, when people's careers merge with their personality as an individual, that's sort of some level of consultancy that we're still trying to maybe procure and understand. And I see you pointing to yourself. Yes.
You are a brand, Eric. And that's why he was saying you will go to the street and nobody will say no to you. I think you can sell your 1 million records by yourself.
I plan to.
Awesome.
And Sheba will help me. And our 5 little chicks. But then, this is the thing. You know, ultimately, we want to be able to go shopping at Nakumatt on a Sunday and not have people, I mean, if I know, you know, and we do get a bit of that. So it's a bit of a tightrope, you know, and figuring it out. So I guess we don't want to be in a situation where you brand yourself so much that you can't live a normal life, you know?
I mean, I think also one of the things that you've struggled with is the spin that comes with, the brand language, so that you're constantly trying to project yourself a particular way, which by necessity means, leaving out some things and putting some things in and sort of exaggerating some things and diminishing others. And the conflict that if you're trying to lead a normal, sort of credible, this is who I am life, the conflicts that those represent. So, I mean, what I think we found out about not necessarily deliberately engaging it is that if you don't set out to establish your brand, I mean, it will be established for you by the sort of accumulated perceptions that people then form and say that, and so here you get an assignment, So maybe you do have to be a little bit more purposed about what it is that you want to put out there in that weird world between being a public person and being a private person at the same time. So I think you're right about the need to sort of embrace and address and think it through, But I can't say that it's necessarily something that has been at the forefront of how we've run our business thus far. We haven't woken up in the morning and thought, like, today, how do we make sure that Eric comes off as, sort of like Captain Kenya, And, but then he wrote this big Kenya song, so it sort of like happened, But then, yeah, it's different from like, I shall always wear a cap that says, all that. So we haven't been that purpose, but yeah.
Yeah, just trying also not, I guess it's that whole thing of not believing your own hype in the, that's...
Not too much, Unless it's real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, one of the challenge that we always have is we wake up in our boardroom in the sense that we're husband and wife, we run this company together. Sometimes we find ourselves, the first question is,
did you get the minutes?
Did you get the minutes? Have we paid the elec?
Did you answer Nishat's email yet?
And so it's so ultimately being this thing and still trying to live our normal life. But then, what keeps us going? I think we can talk about it on many levels, but I think focus is definitely one of the things. As in, like, if there's one thing we've done, is that we've done this thing forever. A friend of mine once said that I think the consistency is the secret of success or something. And so we just keep on pushing it, and we're learning the dynamic as people who work together. How to bring sort of praise and criticism into the workplace, and how that affects our working relationship. We recently had the CEO chat, the big CEO chat. Who is CEO?
We didn't talk to each other for like 3 days during the great CEO chat, but
and I ended up being CEO for about 72 hours. I'm no longer.
Come on,
No, not that. It's just that. Sheba is definitely better placed to be the CEO of our company, and she has a complete grasp of everything that we're doing, as I'm sure came out in the talk. She knows, and I don't. But no, okay. But then also, it's also just also how our personalities are matched. I know this is not the question you asked, but it's sort of in there as well. I mean, in a sense, Sheba has a total sort of view of the whole picture and the image. I'm much more about, it's like she can see the horses. I like to flog the horse, and I have the spirit to just keep on doing that, So I think focus and a complete transparency to each other and of our feelings and everything is what keeps us going.
I think for me, a big part of what keeps us going is that we're working on something that we're really passionate about. Careers and jobs that we've chosen for ourselves, and that more than anything keeps you waking up every morning and excited about it. If you're not going to be excited about it, nobody else will. So you kind of get driven by that. I think we've been kept going by the rewards of being successful with things you set as yourself a huge challenge, and then when you actually pull it off, it's such a energy surge for another 6 months of keeping going. So you do ride on the power of like your accomplishments, which is why you have to set yourself really solid challenges, so that keeps you driven. And I think I'm kept going by feeling like what we're doing is also part of a bigger, more important thing. And I think that Eric's constant engagement with social change in Kenya and with issues of justice and that kind of thing gives another dimension of meaning to the work that we do. And makes it feel important and symbolic and worthy. And worthy, worthy can sound like a bad word, like, oh, so worthy. But like, I mean it like worthwhile, because it's important, and you can see meaningful change, and it lifts me to be part of that. So yeah, that's what keeps us going. Sales. Why didn't you get out of the car and sell CDs, Eric? What happened?
No, by the way, I plan on selling as many of these CDs personally. In fact, this afternoon, we're going to be doing that. But you need to understand, it was like 7 p.m. And to go and knock, it was dark.
raining.
It was dark. Wait, let me explain. It was dark. It was Mombasa Road.
Dangerous.
No, I don't, me, the lions, we can hang, we can deal, right?
They were
But can you imagine, you're sitting in your car, you're frustrated, and then some guy with dreads comes and knocks, cook, cook, cook. How would that have worked out for you? So actually, I didn't. Maybe I should have. But ingekuwa mchana, for sure. Sure. But you're saying that.
It's a missed opportunity. No, I think so.
Yeah. It's
We're not salespeople. We're actually musicians and political science people. So we're
no,
learning.
no.
So the instincts don't necessarily apply to us immediately. Now, right away, right? So we kind of we end up getting. I mean, for me, selling is like horrible. Like the idea of it, like it is intimidating. It's the last thing I want to do. I'm like more likely to give them away, But it's something that we're having to learn how to do. And so I think just like absorbing those instincts as we go along. Your instincts for sales are much stronger than mine. But you kind of realize that you have to become the salesperson. You have to become the accountant for your company, especially when you're a small business. And you have no option for being precious, about yourself. And so your reprimand is quite right. You'll have to sell them. You can't be like, well, after all, I am Sheba Hirst. I can't stand here in traffic and sell CDs, You kind of have to get over yourself. So yeah, I take that rebuke on board fully.
We're going to do it.
Yeah. Royalties.
We'll do.
Royalties, I think probably one of the biggest places that Kenyan musicians are losing money from is the lack of royalty sales. And nowhere was this more crystallized for us than the experience that we had recently with Tinga Tinga, which Eric did the music for the animated series. It comes on Sundays on CNN. On CNN. Oh, no, it doesn't come on CNN. It comes on CBBS, which is rather different, but it comes on Citizen at 5:30. But it also plays on CBBS in the UK, and it plays in Australia, and it plays, all sorts of countries. Yeah. CBBS is huge, right? It's like a global, TV network. So so all the music that's played on that, we get royalties. So Eric was commissioned to write the music for the series, which he did, and we got paid up front for that. And they were like, and then there'll be the royalties. And at that part of the contract, you're like, okay, there'll be the royalties, all right, whatever that means, And the kind of thing doesn't mean anything to you until you go to that bank account that you set up, and there's a loose £10,000 that just arrived. And you're like, where the hell did that come from, And like, what do you mean? It's like, oh, it's the royalties from last month, And then, not the last month, I'm exaggerating, but like, well, no, but 6 months. I mean, I can talk about money a bit. And it's like, and two, so we've had maybe 2 payments of royalties from the TV series. It's like £18,000 in total, right? Wow. £18,000 in a year? I mean, that's like money that you didn't have. You didn't have to call anybody up to get it. You did the work for it that you got paid a substantial amount for up front, And then it brought me to realize that all the music that's being broadcast on radio, on television, honestly, we've given up the whole battle of fighting with the copyright societies in Kenya because it just seems like too much of a battle to go into. But it's also because we've never really fully realized what the value of that revenue is. You can live your life from royalties. Musicians around the world do. And I feel newly inspired to take on the copyright boards. I mean, all the music that goes on, all the soap operas, like that show on TV, guys are supposed to be getting royalties for all that music, let alone, you know, the guy who wrote the sick tune for the news. Does that guy get royalties? He should, you know. I don't know, do you think that guy gets royalties? Does anyone know? Does anyone know who wrote the sick tune? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, you know, so it really is something that needs to be looked into thoroughly, and it's our new challenge. Yeah. Do you want to say more?
Yeah, so I mean, like when you tune into a radio station and you listen to an ad, you're not tuning in to listen to the late Omo does this, Omo does that. You're actually tuning in because of the songs that are on air. And so the tens of billions of shillings that are spent on advertising, a significant percentage of that is meant to go to the people who are attracting the audiences there in the first place. And so that is a discussion that is yet to be finished with the radio stations and the copyright board.
What I was saying is, what I was asking Eric, are they getting their rights worth of they got their payments out there, say, just for the sake of it. Let's say Safaricom is a company in the UK who's paying Eric for that. But here in Kenya, as he said, and as Sheba said, we hear the music on TV, you download them here on the mobile phones, but in the music industry in Kenya, because we know they're collecting revenue. Any barber shop, they have to get a permit to play your music. So we wanted to know, is this money being translated to them? And if not, why?
It's not yet.
Thank you.
Not yet happening. But it's a thing on the agenda that we are going to pursue. Ultimately, for us, like it's always a balancing act, you know. Like I'm on the board of a what's supposed to be a collecting society that was set up by Joseph Kamaru to rival MCSK, because the rationale has always been, in other sort of markets where royalties do exist, you have different collection societies collecting from the different entities. So you've, like in the US, you've got ASCAP and you have BMI, you also have CSAC, you know. But then the question has always been, is Kenya's royalty market large enough for that, you know? But for me, being on that board, I'll tell you, the main challenge for me is, do I have the time to pursue that? I know it's good money, but I feel that a lot my time is best spent in creative endeavors. And so what we need to do is begin to get more and more people involved who want to do that kind of thing and see a value, a commercial value in themselves pursuing it. So maybe a couple of lawyers who love music want to get involved, you know. But that has been my challenge so far. But we're going to pursue it.
I got you a lawyer.
You're a lawyer?
Yes.
Okay, let's roll.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
Guys, can we jump to some music instead of... Yes? Let's do it. Is that okay? Have we lost them?
No, I'm perfectly okay. Let's just do some music. Okay, go on. One more question.
Okay,
Yes.
Fine. Yes.
My name is Edith, and you said something about having people go to college for music, and it struck me. We're having a conversation with my friend Jambi the other day, and we don't have music schools. How do you go to a music college if you've never done music in prep school, if you didn't do it in high school? Have you thought perhaps before doing this grand grant in Berkeley to have summer schools in Kenya where you not only train musicians vocally, but also on the instruments, sound, and I'm asking from a consumer's point of view?
I'll answer that question quickly. Yes, I am involved in Brookhouse's school's music program, which is specifically designed for post-O-level students. It's frustrating because when I was at KU, you find a lot of guys who are coming there for their first year in music had probably never played a piano before. And so even in college level, it's forcing college levels to, colleges to bring down sort of their level of their expectations. So it is something that needs to be addressed. But I'll tell you that a college like Berkeley requires one of two things, at least when I was applying, that you either have 2 years formal instruction or 2 years practical experience. Colleges like Berkeley are industry schools. They're not conservatoires. And so what they expect of you is either practical experience or formal instruction. So I think that while it is important to sort of start getting people, I know there's the conservatoires here, Nairobi Conservatory, and you can get a teacher come over to your house for 1,000 bob for half an hour, you know. But people who can't afford that, there also needs to be a different focus about how we teach music, you know. If we taught a lot more vocal music, for instance, voice is your primary instrument and it's free, you know. Teach a lot more of traditional instruments, because traditional instruments also inform the way we compose. The songs that I wrote assisted by Nyatiti are totally different from a song that I would write on a piano. And so those traditional instruments are available freely and should be used more in school. There has been a lot of sort of leaning westwards, you know, and this is one area where I think we literally can't afford to do that. Yes?
Sorry, if I could just quickly ask Sheba, as a child who grew up in the 80s, I'd like to ask you to thank your father for the Pichadithi books. They just made reading so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I'll pass that on. Great.
Eric and Sheba? Yeah.
Where are we?
Oh, hi.
Thanks for all you shared with us. And I want to assure Sheba that not all books are boring and predictable. My questions to the two of you, I know you're targeting 1 million in Kenya, but have you ever thought about the 800 million Africans? Do you have a strategy to reach Africa?
Yes, we have. Strategy still in the making. I'll tell you that the reason that Love and Protest has maybe 70% of the songs in English is because it was a conscious choice responding to feedback from the continent saying, we like your stuff, but now that you're Pan-African, and now that you're talking about social issues, speak in a language that we all understand, you know? That battle exists. I mean, a lot of musicians will say to you, it doesn't really matter, sing in whatever language, people will get the vibe and will, you know? But I made a choice with this record to speak in a language that a lot of Africans would understand. And also sort of broadening, one of the things that we have done to sort of broaden our reach into the rest of Africa, we did a song with Baba Mal, who is like Senegal's number 2, I guess. I don't know if it's right to say that, you know. If Youssou is 1, Baba Mal is 2, or the other way around, you know. And so we've done that. As far as avenues of actual hard product into the rest of Africa, other than South Africa where we have records released, we haven't done that yet. But I assure you, from Monday after we put this record out, that's going to be first on our agenda.
And probably
Hi, hello. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Eric.
Hi.
And Sheba.
Hi.
My name is Fred. For me, really to appreciate what you're doing and commend you for running your business professionally, because that way you'll be able to attract investors like Ali Khan, people who can invest in your business, and who knows, you can even go ahead and list. Yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, another question.
My name is Anne Mitaru. I think one of the things that we'll take away from this is that you have continued to pave the way for different things. Just, you would be called the myth buster, you know, the thing of it's not good to be overplayed. No, it's okay to, you know, let the people who you live with know who you are and what you sound like. And even just moving to the space of just being able to say, we want to make this happen and we can. Anyway, I don't have a question, I have a comment. And my comment is, I had a friend who came in to Nairobi a few months ago. First time in Nairobi, he bought some of your music. He flew to Abu Dhabi, and that's where he lives right now. And he introduced your music to his friends in Abu Dhabi. And they went and bought the music on iTunes. And there's a friend of my friend living in Doha right now who drives every morning to work playing Sawa Sawa and playing Twende. So, can you get 1 million people to buy your music? You can. I mentioned I was Skyping with him last week, and that's when Mo told me, yeah, there's a friend of mine in Doha who drives every morning to work listening to Eric. And I was like, that's fantastic. He should get the new album, Love and Protest. Is there a new album? I said, yes, there is. Go to iTunes. And Mo went to iTunes and did not find Love and Protest on iTunes. That was last week. It could be there now, but just know Mo in Abu Dhabi and Jamil in Doha love you, and they want Love and Protest.
Okay, well.
Thank you.
Sorry, Eric, just one more thing, which I think, I've known you for more than 20 years, starting off Music Festival. Two things that I've heard a lot of what you said and just reminding us some of the things, but you did not talk about your performing skill, which is something that a lot of people, I think we have great musicians in Kenya, but not all people can perform, which is Eric's magic. And I would have wanted you to share with some of these people about your theater lessons, how that taught you and what that contributed. But the other thing for your music is videos. You do not do a lot of video. And apart from Mexican soaps in Kenya, the other thing that's on every single station is music, videos. You have great lyrics and great music that can have very powerful videos. MTV Base, and which can be your network to go out. I mean, MTV Base always and Channel will always complain that they don't get enough good quality videos. And we've seen what good quality videos can do for P-Unit, Nonini. Like it can take a song and really transform it. I know we shot your first video ever for Kenya only on one piano at KTN and was struggling to get it, and no one had even thought, what the hell is a music video? What do people want to do? But at that time, Jimmy Garth felt that there was a great need to have you perform this. But I think that's one thing, and I'd like to know, in this album, where you're talking about issues that could communicate a lot, it's like making a short film. Are you going to look at videos? Because that is one way to really get your music out on the continent on every single television station across.
Question?
Yes.
And this may be the very last one.
Can I cut this at the last question, then we go for music, because I think otherwise I'm going to get thrown out.
All right.
All right. Hi. I really admire you two as a couple, and working together, it's something that's, it's quite something, having that you don't see couples working together every other day. But I have a question for Sheba. Do you feel sometimes like you're living Eric's life? And what is the most greatest challenge that you faced working together as a couple?
The greatest strategy?
No, the greatest challenge that you faced working together as a couple. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll start with some of the easier questions, like the music video. Yes, we hear you about the music videos. Actually, the music videos has been a bit of a tough story with Love and Protest. We've actually made several music videos for this record, and the plan was for them to come out, initially as singles earlier, and then, together with a launch and so on. But as with everything, we don't believe in putting out things until we're completely happy with them. And for various reasons, and I'm not blaming the people who are involved in making the videos with us or anything like that, but just for a combination of reasons, the videos that we had made, and I think we made 4. It's like the highest track record of unreleased videos ever. We haven't felt that the videos we've made so far are a proper representation of what the record is about or what it is that we want to say with the videos, which are becoming actually standalone elements on their own, They're like a whole new, it's like the same intensity that you put into putting out your songs needs to go into putting out your videos, one wise man said to me, because it is a standalone, separate, film, as it were. And so we decided to focus on the launch for now, get the record out, put the record into the shops, because that's the material that we have that's ready. And then really work with people who know how to do this really, really well, and re-examine what our own motivations and reasons for doing different videos was, so that we can actually land at the winning formula for them. But definitely, that's the story with the videos. But it's actually also been more difficult to get videos onto the MTV bases and the O's and so on. Several actually musicians have been struggling with the channels of communication with them, and we'll find a way. Yeah. If anybody has any thoughts about that, we can definitely do that. Okay.
Cool.
And then challenges.
But that question is for you.
Oh, what was the first question?
Whether you feel your life is.
Do I feel like I'm living Eric's life? Wow, do you feel like you're living my life? Maybe I'm living my life through Eric, and he's like my puppet that I'm controlling. No, sorry. It could be either way. You don't know, you know.
Well.
It could be no. I mean, and that's the thing. I think the challenge when you're a couple and running a business together, there is a huge amount of time that goes into learning how to do that, you know, and learning how, as with any formal relationship, because there is no end to the time when where your roles are like, where your roles are not in play all the time. And so we've recently been much more systematic about demarcating what home time is, what family time is, and who's the boss of things where, and also who's the boss of what, you know? So for example, although I'm the CEO of the company, and I basically devise the strategy of how we're going to roll out this or that or the other, how basically our money is going to be allocated to different projects and that kind of thing, Eric is the head of creative output in the company. So he has the final say. And that was what that challenge, the discussion was about. It's not really about how you move forward. It's not about when things are working and you're agreeing. It's about when you don't agree. Who gets the casting vote? Yeah? Who gets to say, no, we're not doing MindSpeak on Saturday morning. It's not a good idea because it'll be like clashing with everything else. And who gets to say that's their final decision, or that, no, we can make this work, and then the other person gets on board. And the only way really is to just sit down and just agree and sometimes try out different things. So you were the boss for 72 hours and then it didn't work out. And then, but really just deciding who has the casting vote in what areas, and then jointly agreeing to respect that. But also being sincere about what your challenges and concerns are, because you may not want, working out how you're going to be able to bring criticism to each other. So say I'm the CEO, if Eric needs to tell me, you're doing a really bad job of the way you're rolling out this thing, how does he say it in a way that doesn't sound as hurtful to me as if he was to say something, say about a house, you know, like, hey, the food you cooked is bad, you know? So how do you balance that? But he can say things like that to me in the professional context that he would not necessarily say to me in the home zone. Yeah.
So, there's a question that we've been asked that I think we do need to address. Yeah, I mean, it's on the board behind us. It's not like we're going to avoid it.
Where is it? It's forward.
So, I think what I can say and what I want to say, I felt that it was important for me to handle my private manenos in the place that it mattered the most, in my home. But because it's out there and has been for a while, I just want to say that that was the worst mistake of my life on many levels. On one level, I was betraying my very, very best friend. And Sheba held our family together. At times that I was making all the wrong decisions, she continued to forgive and brought us to where we are today. This is the love of my life. This is my best friend. And any and all consequences of my affair are being handled together. And that's all there is to say about that. let's play some songs.
Let's play some songs. Thank you.
Eye for eye and a tooth for a tooth. Seems to me it's just excuses to see the world in white and black. I've always been the man of praise. See things your way, see things my way. Any other way seems losing track. So sing mercy, sing it all around the world. Sing mercy, sing it all around the world. Oh, help me sing it all around the world. So sing mercy, sing it all around the world. Spread my wings and fly to your doorstep, even though it's a long distance trip. Book me a one-way ticket. I certainly do. Serve me what I know and lose it. If we're talking, it's me you giving and we're taking. So sing mercy, sing it all around the world. Sing mercy, sing it all around the world. Oh, help me sing it all around the world. Sing mercy, sing it all around the world. Sing aloud, sing mercy, sing it all around the world. Sing mercy, sing it all around the world. And help me sing it all around the world. Sing mercy, sing it all around the world. I live it up while you live it down. Feather my pillow and go to town. And pick my right beat by my speakers. I don't need to be told you're my brother. Yes, I am a brother's keeper. If you need me, never fear. So sing mercy, sing it all around the world. Sing mercy, sing it all around the world. Oh, help me sing it all around the world. Sing mercy, sing it all around the world. Sing mercy, sing it all around the world. Sing mercy, sing it all around the world. And help me sing it all around the world. Sing mercy, sing it all around the world. So ladies and gentlemen, the album is called London Protest. Please make sure you pick up a copy. We'll play one more song.
Oh, yeah.
don't mind, I don't mind, I don't mind. But my favorite is Orutu special dance, Orutu special music, Orutu special dance. Orutu special dance, Orutu special music, Orutu special dance, Orutu special dancing, Orutu special dance, Orutu special music, Orutu special dance. Orutu special dance, Orutu special music, Orutu special dancing. Orutu, Yatiti, Rituko, Wainaina, Orutu special dance. Orutu, Yatiti, Rituko, Wainaina, Orutu special dance. All right. The song is called Orutu Special. On Orutu, please stand. The Orutu is a one-stringed instrument from Luo Nyanza. Say Luo Nyanza. Say Luo Nyanza. Now, the Orutu is held like this. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, Eric, we didn't come with our Orutus. But I'll say to you, Orutu lives in your hearts. Mko tayari? Kila mtu shika Orutu. The first thing we're going to do, we are going to tune said Orutu. Legeza. Sasa kaza.
What do you think of this? Huh?
Ya mwisho. Haya, tuko in tune. Haya, repeat after me. It has to be in time. That one goes with that one. Guys. Can I buy you a coffee at Intercontinental? Nachileze, munajibu. The coffee is free. It is by MindSpeak, and Satchu. One more time. Orutu special dancing, Orutu special music, Orutu special dancing.
Mapema tumeutafsiri kinyume, hata shule kuingiza mtoto lazima utoe mtoto. Wasema sisi hatuna gari, lete 7,000 ya petroli, saidia utumishi. Mahakamani hela ndiyo haki, kwa hiyo mkate mshtakiwa ndiyo mshtaki, utajiri huwa ushahidi, tutarudisha jamhuri yetu nyuma jamani. Kitu kidogo Chagua nani, bunge au tajiri? Usiuze kura kwa pakiti ya mahindi, kesho je utakula nini? Katika wetu unajikuwa mkito, watoto wane na mzaharo 2,500 ya mtambo, nane hatuna vyakula, nauliza na Mosela, defu ni ubora. to all you MindSpeakers. Thank you so much. Twende kisha muondoke. Twende. Our last song. Give him wind. Give him wind. Zunguka, zunguka nene. upendo ili tusonge mbele, kutambura kwenu switchida hatina rudo, ukosefu wa upendo lete vikie. Stop the war, stop the war. Well, nice, eh? You're not striking. You can be sitting. Sambuli on vocals, Victor Kimeto on keyboards, Isaac Bugunda on guitar, Ricky Najero on bass, Marvin Maveke on drums, George Derito on percussion, you guys on Twitter, Ali Khan on MindSpeak. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nishek. Thank you so much. God bless you all. Buy a CD. They're cheap.
That was just fantastic. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Sheba, for being such wonderful, open, lovely people. Really, that was a superb MindSpeak. Thank you from all of us.